Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me and see me well. Nice to be part of this event. I'm Alexandra Anghel. I'm Program Director at Forward. And I'm also Director of Engineering at Algolia, starting from the beginning of this year. I was previously co-founder and CTO at Morphol up to this January when the startup was acquired by Algolia. And I'm here with Monica. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Alexandra. It's great to be here with you and with everyone who is hopefully watching us. I'm Monica Obogeanu. I'm currently Startup Programs Manager for Orange Romania, where I'm in charge of the Orange Fab Acceleration Program that allows Orange to work in the best possible way with the technology startups in Romania. And in other countries as well, as this is a program led by the Orange Group in several, about 18 countries. In the past, I worked as a product manager for a product that was dedicated to event organizers. And I was part of the startups community in Romania since, I think, 2011. Quite a while. I'm passionate about creating products and creating programs for users and for clients that enrich their lives and the way they conduct their business. So I'm looking forward to sharing what I've learned so far.
Okay, so let's jump to the questions. The first one is, what should a product manager do in a startup? So in full disclosure, I didn't have a dedicated role of a product manager at Morphol. I did, however, handle the product roadmap together with my co-founder. And basically what that meant is that we were thinking about the product strategy, having meetings with the customers to validate what we were putting on the product roadmap, and then prioritizing the features on that roadmap depending on the feedback that we got from the customers. So in the startup, we didn't have a dedicated product manager role. Like I said, this was split between us co-founders. Now, what I've seen at Algolia, we have a dedicated team of product managers, and what they do is basically similar to what we did before in a startup, with the mention that they do only product management. Sorry, they are not involved with engineering. So how does this look like? They have regular meetings with customers to gather the feedback and then pass that feedback to engineering. And then, of course, handle the product roadmap and thinking basically starting with what problem the product solves for the customers and trying to validate those assumptions with them. So I would say that product development in general is very linked to customer development, because you can't develop something unless you validate your assumptions with customers. Now, when it comes to a startup, it's more difficult to do that because usually don't have a lot of customers, sometimes none at all, that you can use to get that feedback. So it's very difficult in the beginning. So you just have to go with your assumptions or basically data that you find, like reports or statistics, to support those assumptions. But as soon as you have feedback from the customers, you can actually replace those assumptions with actual customer feedback.
I think that depending on the size of your company and especially on the type of product that you're creating, as Alexandra said, at least in the beginning of the startup, you might not have just a fully dedicated person that is called a product manager, but someone in the team will wear this hat quite often. It's important for this guy or girl, whether they have a technical background or whether they're more used to working with customers, maybe in marketing, maybe in support, maybe testing even. It's important for them to always make sure that the product that is being built is serving the customer and is also taking into consideration the limitation and opportunities that are brought by technology advancements or any changes that are happening on the market that you're addressing. So usually the product manager should be a very well communicator, so that they can talk to a lot of people, both inside the company and outside the company, that will share different views, points of views about what you're creating, about what the landscape out there is, that will inform your decisions. And in order to have as fast as a route that you can have and take fast decisions, it's ideal to have someone who is the person that everyone knows that is making the decisions about the product roadmap, about prioritizing features, testing them, and pushing them live so your customers can use them as well. So ideally, they're an information hub, but they're also a decision maker. Everyone. So the question was who should be involved in the product development process. As I was saying, there's a lot of people who have the knowledge and should be encouraged to contribute with this knowledge, so that you can keep on the best track and execute as fast as possibly and with as little mistakes as possible. Ideally, you should talk about your product with potential clients. That's first of all people from outside your company that should be involved in this quite as often as you can. Then you need to keep in sync with the people who are taking care of the business, because you need to serve your customers, but in the meantime, your product needs to make sense money-wise when it comes to having a stable company and raising your company. You need to talk with the people inside the company who are the CTO. They are crucial to what you're building. They can tell you, we can do this, we cannot do this, this will take 1 day or 1 month, so let's prioritize very carefully in this. And then I think the testers in your company are also very, very important if you have them, if not the person who wears that hat, as they will look for information from your customers as well, from their perspective, but also from the technical perspective.
I wanted to say the same thing, that everyone should be involved in this process. Next questions. What are some tips and tricks for planning a product development roadmap? That's a good one. I don't think there are many tricks that you can use, because basically this just involves like a lot of hard work and iteration. I think one of the first thing that can be done is to learn to ask the right questions in a way that you're not guiding the responses. And there's a book that I can recommend in this sense. It's called the Mom Test, that can help you learn how to ask questions that are not leading to an answer. And this is the right way to get feedback from customers and then use that feedback to build a product roadmap. Another trick, if I could call it like that, is having an MVP or even some screenshots with the product as early as possible. And again, showing this to customers and getting some early feedback. So before you go in and spend a few months to create a product, even a very simple one, you can actually validate that what you're building makes sense to customers. And again, in the essence of customers, you can use your own judgment, but as soon as you have feedback, just use that, because it's much better than going with personal assumptions. But I wouldn't call these tricks, basically, because this means just iterating and understanding that you're not going to get it right from the first try. It takes a lot of iteration and a lot of experimentation to get to even a working product like an MVP, and then going to the first version of the product.
Yeah, so just to build on what Alexandra said, is don't build a product roadmap that is too big. Just go from small iteration to small iteration while you're validating your assumptions. So next question, what are you looking for when you are looking for a new PM to add to your team? I think, Alexandra, this is way better for you to answer.
Okay, so I haven't recruited product managers myself. I'm more on recruiting engineering talent. But what I would look for is for someone ideally with experience building a product similar to what I have in mind as an idea, because that helps, like having that previous experience. So for example, if I want to build a B2C app, I would look for someone with experience in that field. It's a whole different thing from depending on the market that you're on, to understand like how customers are functioning and how to build such a product in a way that makes sense for them. I don't know if the question refers to hiring a product manager without previous experience in this role. In case I do not have the option to recruit a product manager that has built something similar, I would look for founders that understand that space, that market that I want to build a product on. Ideally, for example, if you're also building a technical product that's, maybe addressed to developers or something like that, it makes sense to work with a product manager that also understands a little bit of the technology, not everything, but they also have to understand the field a little bit better, because otherwise the communication with engineering will be a pain. They will speak different languages and they will not be able to get along too well.
I think if you're looking for a profile for the product manager, they should be really curious. And the ideal product manager is someone who's not afraid to be proven wrong, who is willing to understand feedback, to interpret the user's behavior, to find insights there on what is right and what should be changed about the product, and is not afraid to go back to the team and say, guys, we got this wrong and let's change this fast, because some of our users are unhappy, or we built a feature that's not wanted, that's not working.
Monica?
So yeah, so the next question is, how can we create a clear process for managing the development roadmap? I think this is a lot about teamwork and about communication. This I think touches on something we talk about in the Step Forward workshop. There's a lot of methodologies out there to help you communicate with your team and better organize your product development work. We talk about, for example, two very useful and I think quite simple to get techniques that are impact mapping, that allow you to start from the goals that you define for your business and for your product, and move on from through the customer's perspective and what tasks they need to achieve, and to the features that you need to build inside your product to fulfill your customers' needs. So this is a nice technique that you can Google. You'll find very, very nice presentations and even a book on impact mapping. It was started by Gojko Adzic, and he has a very nice website about it. Then I think another useful technique is story mapping. That's also a nice book written by Jeff Patton. He talks about how the way that you can take ideas from your head, from inside your head, or kind of extract them from your users' heads by asking questions, by taking notes, and ordering what you find inside sort of a map that's made out of stories that you can build primarily to map the user experience that your users would like to have while trying to accomplish a task, and then create the product as you want it, the product roadmap, to match this experience, and again to do it in by iteration, so that you can just build the most important features, validate what you are building, that it is right, and then move on to working more. So you can try and have a look at these techniques. And again, it's something that you can figure out quite fast. It will help you talk to your customers, talk to your colleagues, and organize your findings in a way to help you build a nice product as fast as possible.
If I can add to that, I think it's also very important to set the time aside to do all this planning and have time to use these tools. Because like when we're wearing so many hats in a startup, it's difficult to find the time to stop and think and build a strategy. So I think it's very important to have a process that includes regular meetings to talk about the product roadmap, to talk about the feedback from customers that you're seeing over and over again. Because if you don't set this time aside in the calendar, it tends to be pushed back. There are always urgent stuff to do, like urgent stuff to fix, or maybe building features. So I think it's very important to have that time set aside for these kinds of discussions. Okay, I'll take the next one. How to decide on the next features of the product. If you talk to customers, some feedback will come up again and again and again. And those are the things that need to be prioritized in detriment to other features. If something, it doesn't mean that everything that the customer says has to end up in a product feature. Maybe it doesn't make sense, or it only makes sense for them and not for all the customers. But this thing of prioritization can be done only by validating the assumptions that we talked before. So I feel like I'm repeating myself, but this is very important, because if you don't ensure that you're actually solving a problem for the customers, then what you're building over there doesn't make much sense. Just keep in mind that they will be the ones paying for the product. So unless it solves that problem, it will be very, very difficult to monetize as a product. Monica, if you want to add to this.
Yeah, so I like very much what you said. When deciding on what to start work next, it's very useful to listen to the people that are criticizing your product, because usually those people who are coming, finding a way to get back to you and give you negative feedback, are the ones that have a pain that they want to solve. They're trying to use your product for something, and the frustration that they get that makes them give you the negative feedback first proves to you that they are invested and they need your product, and gives you valuable hints on what you should improve or what you should build. So the next question is, how do you combine the customer requests into product development? I guess this refers to combining features and ideas that come from your customers with what you have planned already in your backlog. So I think that this is a very important to always talk to your users and to try to find the best value that one feature can develop for your users. This is not something that's easy to do, actually, but this is why you need to try to take as small iterations as possible. And you need to know your customers very well. And sometimes what they ask for needs to be correlated with who they are. So you need to know who are the types of persons that you are most interested in serving. And if you have requests coming from these types of persons, you will probably choose to go that route quite fast. But maybe you will get feature requests from people who are not quite matching your ideal user persona. And to those people, you can say, I know, I get it. We will think about it. We will put it in our product development roadmap. But for the time being, we are focusing on building this and this feature. So you prioritize also by taking into consideration which types of users bring the best value back to you.
So if I can add a little bit to that, you have to be careful not to overpromise, because when you're a startup and like trying to get the first revenue coming from customers, it's very easy to go overboard and say we're gonna support everything. So take that feedback with a grain of salt. Sometimes that feedback comes in the form of we want this feature, but sometimes it's just something like, oh, we're trying to use the product and this is not working because we can't do this operation and that. So it's not direct. It's not a feature request which comes very directly formulated. You have to interpret it and put it in a way and implement it in the product that you solve the issue for them, but not necessarily in the way that they described it. So I think it's important after having that customers interactions to sit down and analyze the feedback and decide what makes sense overall as a product strategy to put in the roadmap. Okay, so what are the prerequisites for creating an impact map? I don't know. I think just the willingness to do this and get started. I don't see other requirements over here. Maybe one thing that I would do is basically think about the product strategy on a longer term. Where is this going? I don't know, like in 1, 2 years, 3 years, and see like what's the overall direction, and then going down and discussing about features and the product roadmap. Because the way I see it, impact mapping will be like more detailed and on the shorter term. I don't know, like maybe 3 months. But in order to have that short increments, you also need to think about what is the overall product strategy, are we trying to achieve with this product. That's the way I would position this. Monica, do you have something to add?
Yeah, so I think it's important to start from a business goal that you have as clearly as possible defined for yourself. And you need to create, to map the impact that you can create both for your user as well as for your business, because you want to be sustainable. And you need to look at what you're trying to build. And impact mapping talks a lot about impact that needs to be measurable. So when you're defining these goals that you start to work with, just try to make them as specific as possible, really clearly measured, to allocate time so that you don't spend too much time on building the best feature and then putting it in front of your customers to validate it. So it's a series of experiments what you're doing there. So the next is, what do we need to understand to scale up a tech startup? And I think I would just add here that it's important not to scale too fast. If we're talking about scaling the startup, as in growing the user base as much as possible, maybe growing the team. So don't start scaling too fast. Make sure that you have the right people in front of you, that the product is serving them very well, that you have built a good product for a good profile of people. And then once you are really, really, really sure that you figured this out, start investing in growth and in sales and in marketing and in expanding your team. So the sweet spot is that moment when you have a small enough team that you're able to very well communicate between each other, to talk to valuable users that are interested in using your product and give you useful feedback. And then just making sure that everything is right there, that you have the sweet product they need before investing to scaling.
One thing that I would add to this is we need to understand, at least from my experience developing B2B products, that unless we solve a problem for a customer, the product doesn't have any future. So a product is a means to an end. It's not a goal in itself. So in order for the startup to survive, it needs to build a product that actually solves a problem, and that problem needs to be significant enough in order to keep going, because basically you can be in a situation where the problem is too small, or the market is not big enough. So you also need to take a look on how you position the product on the right market and for the right customers in order to get that revenue. So I think this is the last one. What do you usually use to improve your skills or learn new things? I communicate a lot with the team. There are a lot of resources out there. So for example, I would say that for beginners, that are courses and tutorials on how to start on this, but there's no replacement for actually doing things and just trying out and see how it goes, and just iterate based on that. I don't think there are that many shortcuts that you can take to improve the skills. At least that's the way I would do it. I don't know if it's the best one, but this is what I have.
I noticed the "what do you use" type of explanation in the question. So if I would say, what do I use to improve my then to learn new things, I use books. Yeah, so use a Kindle or whatever makes you happy, and to find these books that are valuable to read, use Quora. Go there and search for any topics that are of interest to you. You will find very good recommendations and then feedback and discussions from those recommendations. Any type of domain that is of interest to you, just Quora it, to say, and you will find a lot of useful resources for this.
Okay, before wrapping up, do you want to add up anything else? The only thing that I would add is that in a startup, product development, it's not a separated topic in itself. So we shouldn't be treated as a separate topic compared, I don't know, like to finding the right customer persona or customer development and so on. So it requires a communication with the whole organization, a whole team, like we said earlier. It shouldn't be, I think the biggest pitfall that I've seen for startup founders is to build a product the way they imagine it without actually validating it with any customers, or even having some preliminary customer interviews to validate their idea. And I think that in this way, they can end up spending a lot of time and a lot of money to get nowhere. And I know that these conversations with customers are tough. Sometimes they are not pleasant conversations to be a part of, and they shouldn't be like that. Like Monica said, if you see frustration coming from customers, just dig deeper and make sure that you understand the problem, because you can get a lot of valuable information out of that.
Yeah, so my input here, just as a takeaway, is if you are starting to build a product, just be very passionate either about the type of people that you want to serve with your product. So you will enjoy, you probably already do enjoy working with these people, spending time with them, asking them questions, understanding their perspective. If you are building a product for yourself, make sure that what you feel is useful for you gets validated with a lot of other people as well, with a similar background, of course, and situation, but with slight differences as well, because that's a trap that you could build a product just for yourself, figuring out the best UX for yourself, but that might prove not scaling. So this is what I appreciate the most about entrepreneurs, seeing that they are passionate about the people they are working with, and they're curious to understand and to improve specific things for their users.
It was great
Thank you.
having this conversation with Monica. I hope people were able to watch and learn something.
Thank you, and best of luck building the products that will change the way the world looks tomorrow, right?
Bye.